Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the PPG Webcam Zenkai Cup that happened this past weekend. It was 140 players with this top 16 that we see here today, and real quick, big shoutouts to PPG for distributing these deck lists. I really do appreciate them, and also for all the players who got to the top 16, like almost all of you guys used like the web links, which makes it a lot easier for me. So I really do appreciate that personally. Makes it a lot easier to make these videos. So and if you guys do appreciate these videos, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. We have the PPG management page in the description as well as this document because they do tend to rotate the results. So I just want to have like an archived version of these deck lists. So anyways, going into this top 16 breakdown, we do have 3 Crimson Warriors, 3 Aandroidd 16s, 2 Gammas, 2 Reboot Beerus, and SS4 Goku Vegeta, Reboot Pan, Majin Vegeta, Reboot Cell, Reboot Kid, Ape, Goku, and a Supreme Kai of Time. So right now, Blue is doing very, very well. We did see a tournament in TCG Con earlier this month as well, which, you know, had a majority of Blue in that top, and I think that's pretty much where we're at. And we have pretty much 2 things. I think Crimson is still incredibly powerful. I've seen it won the event. Robert Rietze did take it again. The Oceania Nationals finaler finisher first place. So again with Crimson Goku, and this is a best of 1 event with no sideboard, so that is something to consider for these deck lists too. But yeah, Crimson's doing well. Beerus, which is I think pretty much just as good as Crimson. Then we have essentially blue-green Aandroids in 2 different flavors with it, and then just pretty much everything else. I think like those, like blue is just like a really good gatekeeper right now for like the best deck in the format, but there are a lot of decks that can counter it and can get some advantage on it as well. So we're going to go over every leader with the top placing list of each leader, starting off with Robert Rietze's first place Crimson Goku. Starting off, we do have Robert Rietze's first place Crimson Warrior, and obviously Robert's pretty familiar with this list. He's been running it for a while, including his first place finish in the Oceania Nats. So nothing too, I'd say, crazy for him to be playing this deck again and for winning with it again as well. Obviously, this is a list that did get hit with some ban list changes, including just the Awakened condition of this guy, but I think it's still just a really solid leader in what it is. And it's just, I don't know, the Saiyans is just such a good archetype, right? There's just so many Saiyans. Of course, it's Dragon Ball. You're going to have to make a lot of Saiyan cards, and there's just so much stuff you can use with the effect to get a lot of that value with it. So obviously, we have like the Pan package, which Pan is a Saiyan, which is strong. We have like the new Super Saiyan Rose, which is great for us too. And then also like Baby Golden Avenger can be a Saiyan. We have the Unbreakables. We have the Dark Brolys, which are also Saiyans. So even the Awakening condition for this is fantastic, and just how strong of a deck this is. And in general too, just the Son Gohan Beyond the Ultimate is, I would say this is probably the better one of the secret rares for it, just because of the active main, the auto. When it gets plays, you get to do the board clear, barrier unison. They go to return the hand, but that's not too bad. Placing an energy, and then also choose up to 2 your card, switch into active mode, and switch this card to active against critical if you use its own effect. But being able to flip your leader back to active means that you get to attack with it, and then you get to draw another card and switch another mono blue. So you get like a 2-for-1 off that, which is great. And there's just so much good value that this deck in general gets in just a lot of tiny ways, which adds up throughout the rest of the game. So I don't know, like blue being able to get a lot of additional energy has always been a strong suit of the color, and I think it's doing very well there. So congrats again to Robert for their finish there. Also, just looking at Z deck, nothing too, I'd say, absurd there either, but there we go. I'm not going to have a lot to say about this deck more probably for the next couple weeks. And look, there's like some big tech changes. So anyways, next up we have Gamma. So this is Jose's second place Gamma list, and this is also just a list that's been trucked along for like the last 6 months. Pretty much since release, this has been a meta viable leader, and that has not changed at all with BT19. It has been kind of getting some tiny support here and there, including the Aandroidd 17 Defending Friends, one of the just a super good blue promo that we have. So being able to negate the attack for 1, the fact that it's an Aandroidd is fantastic. The fact that if your leader is blue and you have 3 or more Z energy or Z battle card in play, which is pretty easy, it pretty much is a floodgate. So it's just like another version of your Aandroidd 14. Obviously, this you have to play for 2, but you can play the other one for 1. But this also bottom decks 2 as well. And I don't know, like all of it's just great. The fact that it is an Aandroidd does have like a lot of great synergy for the deck inherently, which means it's moderately searchable in the sense like how you use your energy shenanigans, and it's just in a really good spot. I do like the Perfect Force cell also just put in the list. I think that's an interesting take there too. Obviously, I think like the big thing that blue sometimes has issues with is hand destruction. I don't think the current versions do right now, but I think it's something that could do some work every once in a while. And then in the Z deck, obviously you have the Jiren because you can be playing green in this deck, which is nice, and just having a way of removal, especially like unisons, is pretty good. And then everything else is pretty good, especially the Beerus, being able to get rid of barrier with this card too, with the deck that we see here, where obviously Gamma really gets a lot of energy for a lot of, getting that energy refresh at the end of every turn just helps you out too. So Gamma's good. I don't think that's groundbreaking, but congrats to Jose for their finish there. Next up, we have Thomas's third place Majin Vegeta. So this is obviously a bit of a out of nowhere finish, and but it's very interesting. Like green, when it works, it's usually off the back of like some kind of really like tuned aggressive deck that sometimes won't get what you need, but when you do see it, it's very, very nice. So I'm not going to be a perfect I'm still digesting this deck myself, so don't think that I know the perfect ways for it, but I'm going to try my best, and let's go through it. So obviously this is an archetype. This is an old leader, not too old, but it's with the Overlord and Servant. You get to add one card from your hand from your life. When this card attacks, you get to draw one, get 5k plus double strike. So you're a 15k double striker on the front side, which is great, and you get to essentially draw 2, so very hyper aggressive for this deck. And also Awaken, when your life's at 5 or less, you get to switch up to 2 of your energy active mode. And then on the front side, the back side, same activate main. So you could use, unfortunately, like this is an auto and this is like an activate main, so you can't like double stack it to become like a 25k double strike with its own effect. But also it has an activate main once per turn for 1 green. You may look at the bottom card of your deck. If it's a Vegeta card with energy cost 3 or less and the Servant skill, you may play it, otherwise return it. So the idea is that it's the Servant mechanic that we've seen, which means that we have a bunch of these Vegetas essentially with Servant, and since you're an Overlord on your leader, you get to put them bottom of your deck and get the advantage for it there. So this gets a double strike when you and you add a card from your life. So just hyper aggressive there. We have the Prince of Destruction here too. So for 2 green, if your leader card is a mono green, you have 3 or more energy, choose up to 1 Prince of Destruction, Vegeta, Prideful Warrior in your hand, play on top of this card in active mode. So this, which is a triple strike, if your leader's mono green was played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's unisons and move 3 markers. So just like a bunch of like destruction there on unisons. We also have this expansion rare too. So unique barrier servant. This card can't attack if your opponent and if your opponent has this card can attack, and if your opponent has more energy than you, this card gains blocker. So it's like a blocker barrier. This card is played, draw 1, and place 1 card from your hand to bottom of your deck, which means you can set up your servant plays. Also, activate main, limit 1 if your leader card is a green wizard property, and your opponent has 1 or more energy, you get to play this card from your hand. And also activate main if your green leader is a green evil wizard property, and you place this card from your hand at the bottom of your deck, choose up to 1 unison, and remove a marker from it. So just like a lot of great utilities. It's a servant. It's being able to be like a barrier blocker. If your opponent has more energy than you, which kind of can happen, especially if you stop charging stuff, and then you get to play it for free too. So all these are great, and then you get to like bounce it. It's like a free card draw, and it's just like more value. And then lastly, I like this package too. It's been common for this deck, but it's the King Piccolo Dimensional Conqueror. So it's a unison, but you can play it for 1. So if your leader card is mono green, your opponent has 7 more cards in their hand. Play this card from your hand with a marker on it. You can't play unison cards for the turn. So obviously very easy to do this. If you are able to attack into your opponent's leader with double strike, you just make them draw 2 cards, and then most of the time that means they have enough cards in hand to play this turn 1 if you go second. Vice versa, you can play this on your turn 2 if you go first pretty easily. Traditionally, you can't play this on your turn 1 going first, but and then you also get to 2 of them card from your hand, place under this. You both draw 1, and then you get to choose up to 1 green battle card. Then you cost a 1 and do that. So just being able to get a unison out for free is strong. Being able to have this and get some like another 15k swing, being able to get all the abilities and have a unison out on board for your effects is quite good. So that is just kind of like the basic combos. I might be testing this deck on stream later this week too, just to kind of see how it clicks. It's usually more aggressive than I usually play, but I think there's something here, and it's really cool to see this one get that top 3 finish. So congrats to Thomas on their finish there. And next up, we have Jayson Scott with Pan Reboot. And Pan Reboot has been getting like the sneaky like one of tops every couple events, and I would say that kind of qualifies for this one. It hasn't gotten a lot of support in the last little bit, but I think it's a very strong deck kind of out the gate, and just the fact that I think Red Sin is not really viable anymore with the banning of the one guy, so the Raid Shenron. So it's just kind of interesting to see. Like, I think Gogeta is kind of okay where it's at. It also got hit from the ban list, and we'll talk about it when we see it. But Pan has just always been pretty strong. It's been getting like a couple of stray hits with all of the red hits it's been getting, but some kind of interesting cards for this one. We do have this BT19 super rare. So it's the Goku Vegeta Trunks triple combination. Auto limit 1, place 1 card from underneath this card's 2 owners drop. When this card attacks, choose up 20 opponent's battle cards that gets minus 30k. And for 1 red, choose 1 red Saiyan card in your battle. You place this card from your hand and place a chosen card under it. So you kind of go on top of it. It's pretty easy to get a red Saiyan there too, and to get that effect. So like being able to get like a free 20k for 1, like you don't have to really invest too much, which means you get to proc the Pan. I think that's a nice little add for the deck there. And then kind of just the rest of, I'd say, like the usual targets for this deck. You want to be able to play a bunch of 15ks to get a lot of advantage for it. The red, Defender of Life, is doubly good in this deck because it's actually made for it, but does a lot of pressure. The Vidal as well, and just a very strong deck in general. So I think this is a goodie for, I don't know, like it's not, I would never say like Pan is like the best deck for red at any given time right now, but it has a lot of unique mechanics. It has a lot of ways to get a lot of advantage, and I think it's definitely, if something you like to do is kind of get that grindy advantage game, this is kind of like one of the more advantage based red decks out there right now. So again, congrats to Jayson on their top 4 finish. Moving on to 5th place, we do have Jared Lopez's Aandroidd finish here, Aandroidd 16, which shouldn't be any surprise if you follow my channel, because pretty much every tournament that Jared enters, he gets the top 16, and it's usually with Aandroidd 16. So not a lot of new text, but again, this is a deck that can take advantage of Aandroidd 17 defending friends. You do have to get a Unison out, but again, like Beerus is such an easy Unison to get out to proc this effect because it's a 2-drop with barrier, and then it has good removal, so you almost always want to get it out. It's just a good little combination for us there. And a little bit more green power here too, especially with the 2 of Frieza's resurrected ambitions, because you can do some more hand destruction option with this. I know Jared likes to fuse the Masus, which also help for this, and the 5-drop and the looping and stuff. And that's kind of this. And also the Kusu as well, which is a great way to get rid of your opponent's cards and get some hand destruction. So in general, I think Jared's super good with this list. He's been playing it for a very long time. But also, we did see some additional Aandroidd 16s in this top 16. So I think he's a couple more people might be picking up more and trying to find the strength for it and finding that success, which is cool to see as well. So not much more. Congrats to Jared on their finish there. Next up, we have, let's see, this is Legends. Oh, no, sorry. This is, my bad. This is Legends Michael Kerrick's 6th place Reboot Beerus, which I really like this deck right now. It's very strong, and honestly, like, this is probably one of the best winners in the format with God Sealing going away for 2 main reasons. It's this one and this one. Like, these are 2 really good cards that don't have deflect, but when their effect procs, you are doing very well. They're both ramping procs too, so obviously Whis on turn 1, or your second turn rather, is great, being able to ramp to 3. So on 4, you can play something like Majin Buu is very strong, or being able to just get you higher to your ramping potential, because obviously this on turn 6 is still such a good play. And this deck, like, I think like Bojack is like a really cool deck. I've been liking Bojack for a long time, but with I think Beerus Reboot is just a better version of Bojack right now. And so if this deck is out and you can play either more, like, just Beerus wins more often. Beerus has more extension for what it does. It has a lot more power in general, and because of that, it doesn't really seem like Bojack is going to get a lot of potential. I don't think it's going to be doing any better than Beerus as of right now. So it's a strong deck. It's obviously blue. Blue's very good right now. We've been seeing that. Aandroidd 17 is a really good way to just win the game on the spot for a lot of ways. You do have the 16, which is pretty viable in this deck too, especially with a couple of SS4 Vegeta procs. And like the silly thing with this too is that playing one means like the next turn you can play two, which is pretty, and then you can just have a hatch in hand. And if they don't have a way to counter it, you just win by default. So I think there's a lot of strong stuff with this deck, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, especially with getting the advantage that is like removal of like Godsend, which is I think was like the biggest scary card or biggest counter for this deck. And since it's just gone, you get a lot of you feel a lot safer playing this deck, which is pretty scary there. So congrats to Legends for their finish there. And then next up we have our top 8. This is Giovanni's Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, which obviously this deck did get some hits from the ban list with the Goku getting away. Obviously you have a lot more Gokus to fill the spot, so like you aren't like, the deck isn't unplayable. Obviously it got top 8, but it's not as strong as it has been. And it kind of been like hit twice since release. It's been one of the focus for that. So obviously Brawly Crown of Retribution got hit because of it, and then Yamcha got hit to 1, and then Violent Rays also got hit to 1, and then it got a card banned. So like obviously this deck is not at full power, but it's still pretty dang good for what it is. And I think it's definitely a deck you still have to just respect and have a way to deal with the amount of pressure they could be kind of putting out. So, and unfortunately, like the best way to counter this deck is Dirty Burst, which is such a free card to run in blue right now that it's just really hard for this deck to sometimes win against blue with, you know, having to respect the effects of what Dirty Burst does. So that is my kind of main thing. I've been talking about this deck for a while. There's not a lot. There's a couple of cool techs. I do like the Rushing Warrior Pan is cool. And they decided to go with the Super Saiyan Broly Awakened Attacker for their super combo, probably because the Sparking 5 is a little bit easier to get with this deck. But I don't have much more to say to that. So they also are running the Omen of Awakening. So if your leader is red and you choose one card in your life, place your drop. If the battle card being played is 20k power or less, place it in its owner's drop area instead of being played. And permanently, if you have red Yusin, you can do this for just 1, which obviously this deck is like always going to want to play this guy. It's this is still like a stupid good card. Like it's crazy like how much stuff kind of had to be hit to have this card still at 4, including Brawl. Like these two, pretty much these two cards had to be hit for this to be at like at 4 of still, but I think that's silly. And then the cards you'd expect in the Z deck, nothing too silly. So congrats to Giovanni on their finish. We got 3 more decks, starting off with our only yellow deck to get into this top 16. And that's pretty much been like one yellow deck sneaks into a top, like 1 or 2. It's present, but not like barely. It just like shows up, it's there. And I think that the Ape Son Goku Returns is probably the best one that's been around. I know that Future Trunks got a lot of support from the Dash Pack, and I think the overwhelming consensus is that it's neat, but it isn't good enough now. Now, there also could be the thing where people don't have the cards for Dash Pack, they don't want to play it, they like something else. So I don't know if there's been enough experimentation, especially with how the release for those promos has been. But I think that, you know, the Goku Ape reboot has been very consistently like 1 or 2 will get into that top placing from where we're at. So the biggest thing is that this deck is really involved on unisons like Bulma Stalwart Adventurer, and that is a very tricky card to consistently have alive anymore with Black Smoke Dragon, and that's like the biggest thing I think this deck has going against it right now. But it does, I don't know, it has a way to get a lot of barrier cards out very quickly, very obnoxiously get a lot of advantage from that, and it's a very obnoxious deck for really what it is, which is partially why it's so strong. So running the Slug package I think is also pretty mean. Just means that there's more barrier guys out. The only thing I would say that I would want to add to this deck is probably I think there could be something to say for, I don't know, I've been playing a lot of yellow in this set right now because I've been playing the Lord Slug, and I do think like the Slug Z battle card is really strong for what it is, especially if you're already running the Lord Slug package, which means you can change the super combo from Krillin into the Lord Slug one, which means it's searchable off your guy. So all of that is great, and then you can put like a card you don't need to the bottom of your deck, like an extra Unison, or you could put a Son Goku, which you can find later with the effect. So that's the only add that I would think for this deck, but I think this is a really solid, it's a very standard build for where we're at right now, and this Goku Ape rare here is pretty strong for where we're at too. But I think that's it. Also the Death Blaster and the World Champion, both these adds are nice, especially since the Death Blaster needs to have the mono yellow extra cards. and these make it very easy to get them there. So I will say that as well. But that's going to be this there. Congrats to Amani there. I know Amani plays yellow pretty consistently, so congrats to still keeping it up on this event here. Next up, we have Andrew Tan's 14th place Reboot Cell. And I'm a big fan of Reboot Cell, and I think this is definitely a deck that, like, it's pretty much what it's been like since release. There are almost no ads since then because they haven't really printed any specific support for this, and this is a little peculiar to the exact typing and names and stuff. But some good ads that we have seen recently is the Son Gohan Latent Power Unleashed, which is such a good card at getting rid of the Majin Buu Unison, being able to just use the effect to like you swing with your leader. And like obviously this is already a 20k leader with its activating effect, but being able to use the effect, swing at to your Unison, combo with this, and then for 1 green remove 3 markers, which means that the Majin Buu is gone off of 1 energy and 1 attack, which is pretty good. That's very, very solid. So I think it's a cool card for that. And then that's pretty much it. We have the promo of Kaioken Son Goku getting some picks. Like there's just like a lot of ways to get a lot of tiny advantage for this, and it kind of like still reminds me of how like the aggressive version of Surge Cell looks, especially with like Man of Omission and like just like some of the text for this deck. But I think there's that. I also do like the there's Cell Max Deliver of Despair as the secret rare for this deck. Traditionally, I think people still like would use the Cell Xeno for the deck, especially since you're running the the Fade Rival package, which is an easy way to kind of get that set up if you see it. But I also do like the Bardock. I do like this Bardock Unison for this deck. I really, really do. I think it's a strong card for this deck in general, and I'm happy to see it being played. So that is this build, and congrats again to Andrew for this finish. It's a big deck. I really like the Cell deck a lot. I haven't played it in a while just because there's not much more deck building to kind of understood. It's more just playing, and I got to make a lot of new decks, but I think it's a solid one to kind of keep coming back to and, get this occasional topping here. And getting the final one for the day, it is Manuel's 16th place Supreme Kai of Time. 15th place Supreme Kai of Time. And I think this is probably the best deck of that got support from the new Dash pack that came out this month. Primarily the cards of the Son Goten challenging the Dark Empire. There is the Trunks challenging the Dark Empire. There is what else? There's at least one more card. I don't know why I'm blanking on what it is. That's because it's right here. It's the Pan Search for Another World. Like this card's great for the deck too. And then there's the Majin Buu that you run 2 of just as a blocker. And then also if you lose black, if you have 3 more energy, place 1 of your Z energy, choose a 20 opponent's battle cards, place it underneath it, and this gets plus 20k. So just like a 1 cost removal that doesn't care about energy requirements, which is great. It doesn't get a run barrier, but it's still pretty good. There's also the Xeno Reflective Strike. This is a really, really good counter. It's very specific for what it is. But it's great for this leader, especially since it's just like all that's good. Either activate main, send this card to its owner's warp, draw 2, and then send 1 card from your hand to your warp, which means you just overwhelm for 3, draw 2, and then you can activate main, draw 2, and then discard 1. Warp 1. And then also activate main. If your leader is Black Supreme Kai and you discard this card, look top 5. Then add, and just the fact like you can discard this card to get cards into your drop to help your overwhelm plays or get what you need lined up is good. Like there's a lot of counting for this deck, and pretty much most black decks have been just Vegex, right? It's like every deck that has been pretty much popular for black since BT10 has been a kind of an offshoot of Vegex. There's Dark Broly. I'm not going to say all of them, but just like this is definitely just like the new version of Vegex in my mind, in the sense that you kind of have this way to kind of cheat out a lot of cards with Overwhelm. You get a lot of cool advantage from it, and that. And when I say Vegex, I also mean like Gogeta Xeno. Gogeta Xeno, I think, is like a Vegex offshoot. Like it's just kind of the whole same idea where you have a leader that sets up your drop or your warp. You use the effects from your drop and your warp as like a second hand, and that's, I think, is exactly what the Supreme Kai of Time is doing right now. And it's in a really kind of good spot because of all the really specific support specifically for this leader. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions for these lists, let me know. Again, thank you to PPG for running the event as well as promoting these deck lists. I do appreciate that. And that will be it for me. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.